3 years, 8 months, and 22 days. That's how long I've been staring at the same stupid hunk of alien metal, hoping no, begging for it to do something. Anything. A flicker, a hum, a sparkle, a beep. Instead, all I've gotten is silence. Silence and rejection. Rejection in ways I didn't know were scientifically possible. Today's candidate, approximate elite warrior, muscles rippling, ego twice the size of his skull. The guy strutted into the chamber like he owned the place. Now he's floating upside down near the ceiling, limbs flailing in slow motion, drooling slightly and making sounds I'd compare to a malfunctioning garbage disposal. My team watches from behind the safety barrier, most of them trying unsuccessfully not to laugh. Another failure, I announce, deliberately louder than necessary. A spectacular one. The armor, 9 feet tall and impossibly pristine, doesn't move. It never does. It just stands there like some ancient monument to disappointment. No signs of wear, no dents, just smooth, perfect, silently judgmental surface. I hate how smug it looks, and I know that's irrational. It's just metal. Probably, hopefully. Should we help him down? My assistant Nari asks, blinking all 4 of her eyes out of sync, something she does when she's amused, but pretending not to be. I sigh and check my datapad. Let him hang there a bit longer. The anti-grav disorientation wears off after about 3 minutes. To date, we've gone through 2,749 test subjects. That's right, 2,749 intelligent beings, each representing a different branch of known galactic civilization, all trying and failing to activate the artifact we found buried under the ice of Europa. It's supposedly a relic from a precursor civilization, predating any recorded spacefaring culture by roughly 50,000 years. In other words, it's old, and stubborn, and very, very selective. Testing log update, I say aloud, speaking into my recorder. Test subject 2,749. Designation: Elite Warrior Class. Rejected by artifact in 6.3 seconds. New record for fastest rejection. I paused. The Proximan started floating. Not metaphorically, literally drifting upward toward the ceiling. Add anti-gravity side effects to the known rejection responses. Behind me, I heard the stifled laughter of junior researchers. Can't really blame them. After thousands of tests with hundreds of species, the rejections had gone from frustrating to, honestly, kind of entertaining. Last week, the armor turned a Velian ambassador played, not the color actual plod. The week before that, a Relian general couldn't speak anything but early Terran commercial jingles for hours. Some of them weren't even good jingles. Can we get the gravity nets on ceiling detail? I asked, watching our Proximan friend do slow rotations near the containment field. Also, someone tell Director Zena we'll need more neural stabilizers. Again. The lab hummed around us, alive with activity. We were 300-strong researchers, engineers, support personnel, all focused on unlocking the secrets of this one artifact. The most advanced testing facility in the quadrant, equipped with quantum scanners, psychic resonance chambers, dimensional mapping arrays. None of it made a dent. Nari approached again, holding up her datapad. Linguistics team sent over their latest report. They think they've translated another chunk of the surface markings. I raised a brow, well, one of my peripheral tendrils. Let me guess. Another version of not you in some long-extinct dialect? Actually, she said, with a bit more excitement than usual. No. They think it says something about the chosen and Earth. There's debate over whether Earth refers to dirt or, like, the Terran homeworld. I snatched the pad, scanning the translation with growing interest. 3 decades of xeno-archaeological research, and this was the first time we'd seen anything resembling a specific reference. Most inscriptions had just been vague dismissals. Not worthy. Try again. Close, but no. This was new. Schedule a meeting with the linguistics team for tomorrow. And someone get our floating friend down before the anti-grav wears off. Right on cue, there was a loud thud, followed by a groan. I turned back to the armor. Still silent, still towering, still immaculate. Like some ancient judge that's already ruled against you before you even plead your case. Its surface shimmered slightly under the lab lights, creating patterns that shifted if you weren't looking straight at them. I'd stopped trying to explain that phenomenon. At this point, it felt like the armor was just toying with us. One day, I said to it, knowing full well I was talking to an inanimate object, we'll figure out what you're actually waiting for. The armor didn't answer, never did. But I swear, the surface patterns moved in a way that looked suspiciously amused. In hindsight, I probably should have paid more attention to that moment, would have saved us time, and maybe 15 cases of species inappropriate appendage growth. But that's getting ahead of things. Send in the next one, I called, marking another failure in the logs. Behind the protective barrier, the next volunteer was already stepping into the chamber. We called this testing phase operation, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Not exactly scientific terminology, but honestly, it captured the mood better than any official designation. This time, it was the Arcturian ambassador, 7 feet tall and very proud of his cultural grace and dignity. Researcher Vax, he began, I assure you, our species has an unmatched resonance with ancient artifacts. Surely, the armor didn't even let him finish. In 2.8 seconds, he turned bright pink and developed an uncontrollable urge to tap dance. Another note in the log, day 1247. Armor displays ongoing sense of humor, possible personality. Next up was a corporate rep, name, Terry Blue, clearly fake. Wore suit so expensive it probably had its own gravitational field. He flashed his species version of a charming smile and said something about market viability. The armor responded by transforming his suit into a Hawaiian shirt and cargo shorts. The effect spread to every other corporate observer in the vicinity. That entire sector of the observation deck looked ready for a beach party. Note to self, I muttered, watching Nari try very hard not to laugh. Armor displays strong anti-corporate sentiment, possibly rooted in ancient labor movements. Flag for historical research. And that was just the morning. We had monks try meditation. Mystics attempt spiritual bonding. Quantum physicists propose hyper-logical frameworks. Every species, every angle, every approach. The armor rejected them all, sometimes violently, often hilariously. And every single time, we got the same result. It said no. Or rather, it said not you, not warrior enough. Not pure enough. Not logical enough, not spiritual enough, not entertaining enough. The excuses kept coming, and we kept logging them, until one day, everything changed. And it wasn't because of a renowned scholar or a decorated general or a powerful telepath. No, the armor changed its mind for a guy who just came to check the A. But I'll get to that. First, there were a few more rejections to go. And let me tell you, they only got weirder from here. By the time we hit the 1248th test, I had developed a theory. The armor wasn't just rejecting candidates, it was judging them. Not based on their strength, intelligence, or even compatibility. No, it was rejecting people for being, well, uptight. We tested warriors, scholars, empaths, mystics, diplomats, and technocrats. We tried brute force. We tried reason. We tried heartfelt speeches about destiny. The armor's response: transform them, humiliate them, and then drop them back into the lab with a side of neural confusion and a sprinkle of anti-gravity chaos. The more important, or self-important, the candidate, the faster the rejection. And the armor wasn't subtle about it. Take the Velian High Priest. Traveled 6 systems to chant in 13 simultaneous frequencies, all while balancing an ancient ceremonial crystal on his head. The armor turned him into a very confused flamingo for 5 hours. Or the meditation expert from the Betelgeuse monastery, he sat in front of the armor for 12 hours in total silence. We were starting to think it might be working. Then the armor responded by flooding the chamber with what we later identified as elevator music from early Terran archives. Volume: extremely high. Then there was the quantum physicist from Centaurus Prime. A pure logician claimed to have solved paradoxes that made lesser minds weep. He proposed that if the armor followed even a basic probabilistic logic, it would respond to his theory of identity entanglement. It responded by turning him into a cloud of living probability. For 5 minutes, he existed in every awkward, embarrassing moment of his life at once. We actually had to bring in a therapist. During lunch one day, Neri leaned across the table, still chewing her salad, and said, "I'm starting to think the armor's enjoying this." I grunted, scrolling through the latest test logs. "If it starts laughing, I'm quitting." But the signs were all there. The rejections weren't random. They were escalating in absurdity. More elaborate, more personal, almost theatrical. The Relian general spoke only in early 21st century Earth infomercial catchphrases for 2 straight days. A Denebian shapeshifter kept randomly shifting into furniture pieces from lost Terran catalogs, lawn chairs, old CRT televisions, beanbags. It was like the armor had read the entire collective history of Earth's most ridiculous cultural quirks and was using them as punchlines. And that got me thinking, maybe it wasn't just rejecting people. Maybe it was trying to send a message. We were so obsessed with credentials. With presenting the right type of candidate, our test subjects had titles, awards, spiritual significance, or political leverage. They were chosen based on tradition, status, or theoretical compatibility, and every single one of them had failed, sometimes flamboyantly. Why? Because they were trying too hard. They bowed, they chanted. They delivered rehearsed lines about worthiness and legacy. They tried to impress it, prove something. But what if that was the problem? What if the armor wasn't looking for someone special? What if it was looking for someone normal? The turning point, though I didn't know it at the time, came during a visit from the Galactic Science Council. This was our elite, the best minds across 72 systems. If anyone could crack the code, it was them. They came in with their coordinated uniforms, state-of-the-art scanning equipment, and the unshakable confidence of people who believed their intelligence alone was enough. 6 hours later, their quantum harmonizer had been transformed into a machine that only played ancient Terran cat videos, which played on loop, on every screen in the lab. To her credit, Council Member Za stood in the middle of the chaos, fur twitching slightly, and said, "Interesting." The armor's responses suggest not just rejection, but correction, as if it's teaching. "Yes," I replied, watching as one of her colleagues sprinted past making involuntary bird noises. Teaching us we're idiots. That evening, the lab looked like a carnival crossed with a breakdown in interdimensional containment. The floors glowed with footprints that changed direction every few minutes. The walls occasionally giggled. 3 researchers had formed psychic links with their childhood pets. One unfortunate intern could now only speak in rhyming couplets. We were falling apart. And the armor, I swear, was enjoying it. Then came the moment. I stood in front of my team and said, "Tomorrow, we try something different. No more ambassadors. No more scientists." We stop trying to impress it. We test regular people, maintenance crew, cafeteria staff, janitors. One of my junior researchers, still upside down from a failed grav experiment, asked, "How's that different from what we've been doing?" Because I said, eyeing the armor as its surface rippled again, just slightly, "We've been treating it like a throne." Tomorrow, we ignored completely. Right then, the armor did something it had never done before. It gave us a thumbs up. An actual Terran-style thumbs-up emoji, glowing faintly across its chest plate before fading back into its usual cryptic pattern. Did anyone else see that? I asked the room. Everyone suddenly had somewhere else to look, papers to shuffle, systems to reboot, sleep to catch up on, but I saw it. I know what I saw. That was the moment I realized we'd been doing this wrong from the beginning. We assumed the armor was sacred, that it wanted reverence, ritual, respect. But if it really was tied to Earth, if the references to Terran culture and the rejections weren't just coincidence, then maybe the armor wasn't a test of greatness. Maybe it was a test of attitude. Maybe it was looking for someone who wouldn't get caught up in the myth of it all. Someone who wouldn't treat it like a divine relic. Someone who didn't want to use it but maybe just fix it. It hit me hard. We'd built the most advanced testing facility in the quadrant. We had cutting-edge tools, cross-species interpreters, AI-assisted translators, emotional resonance scanners, and an entire team of intergalactic diplomats and geniuses on call. And maybe what we really needed was someone who changed the air filters and didn't overthink it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the lab, staring at the armor. The light from the containment field flickered faintly across its surface, revealing those strange shifting patterns again, never the same twice. Like it was alive. Waiting. Watching. I said quietly, "You're not impressed by power, are you? You're just tired of all of us making this complicated." The armor didn't answer. But something about the way the lights shimmered across it, there was a rhythm. A kind of amused patience, like it was waiting for the punchline to a very long joke. And the joke, of course, was us. We'd been running simulations, ancient language decodings, cross-referencing mythologies, charting compatibility graphs. All the while, the armor had been standing there, shaking its metaphorical head. Not worthy. No, just too full of ourselves. The next morning, we didn't summon a council member or a warrior monk. We didn't schedule a ceremony or prepare a ritual. We just opened the door. And in walked a guy with a toolbox and a casual wave. "Hey," he said. "Maintenance got a report about weird power fluctuations down here. Mind if I check the regulators?" That was the beginning. He didn't bow, didn't ask for permission. Didn't try to interpret the armor's mystery. He just looked at it and said, "Ha, neat statue." Then he reached out and tapped it. And that's when everything changed. The armor lit up literally. Patterns flowed across its surface like liquid fire. It reacted, not with rejection, not with transformation, but with something we hadn't seen in over 3 years of testing: recognition. If you'd asked me to place a bet on which species in the galaxy would finally activate the armor, I wouldn't have picked humans. I definitely wouldn't have picked that human, but that's exactly what happened. The day started like any other. Test chamber prepped, med team on standby, containment fields active, data pads charged. We were running low on eligible volunteers, so the new plan was to test facility staff people who weren't wearing ceremonial robes or carrying a dozen letters after their names. I still remember grumbling to myself, let's see if someone who cleans air ducts can succeed where 1,000 PhDs failed. I thought I was being sarcastic. Spoiler, I was not. About 20 minutes into testing prep, someone walked right into the lab. No clearance, no authorization, no idea what he was stepping into. Just strolled past the security barriers like he was headed to a vending machine. He was wearing gray coveralls, boots scuffed from work, and a name patch that read Alex. He had a standard-issue diagnostic tool in one hand and a half-eaten protein bar in the other. "Hey," he said, "casual as anything? I'm here to check the atmospheric regulators. Got a report of pressure spikes down on level 3. Nari checked her tablet." We didn't approve a maintenance visit during active testing hours. They probably sent the ticket without clearing it, Alex shrugged. "Won't take more than a minute." By now, I was already on my feet, waving security over. "Excuse me, this is a sealed facility. Highly classified." "You're not authorized," but that's when the armor hummed. It had never done that before. A low vibration rolled through the chamber, like an old engine turning over for the first time in millennia. The kind of sound that made you stop talking mid-sentence and wonder if you just felt history shift a little. Alex paused and looked up at the armor. "Oh wow," he said. "Neat statue. Kinda reminds me of those old Earth video games my grandma used to play." "Don't touch that," I snapped, practically tripping over myself trying to stop him. Too late. He stepped right up to it, no fear, no hesitation, and tapped it. Just a light knock, like he was checking a pipe for pressure. The armor woke up. Lights burst across its surface in cascading waves, patterns flowing like liquid starlight. Energy signatures flared. Systems reinitialized. The air changed charged, buzzing like it was waiting for something incredible. And all the while, Alex stood there calmly, squinting at a power panel on the wall. "Looks like you've got a serious energy draw from this unit," he muttered, completely ignoring the fact that a 50,000-year-old superweapon was lighting up like a holiday tree behind him. "You might want to check your grid calibration." Every scientist in the room froze. Nari's jaw dropped. I stood there with my data pad shaking in my hands, watching a man who thought he was fixing a thermostat casually walk into the single biggest breakthrough in Zenworchiological history. "And the armor?" It responded. It moved. Sections of it shifted, reformed, adjusted height and width, adapting to Alex's proportions. The entire thing folded open like a flower blooming in 0G. Smooth, precise, elegant. The internal mechanisms were revealed: gleaming ports, bioconnectors, shimmering conduits, and somehow, impossibly, inviting. It was calling to him. Alex blinked. "Okay, that's not regulation safety equipment." Then, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, he stepped inside. The armor closed around him with a series of soft, satisfied clicks. Everything about it, from the way it sealed to the subtle glow at the joints, said one thing: perfect fit. "Ah, sir," Nari said, her voice higher than usual. "Are you seeing this?" I couldn't speak. My instruments were exploding with data. Neural links formed. Energy readings spiked. Internal systems activated one by one: navigation, targeting, defense fields, atmospheric adaptation, even environmental scanning. Alex, now fully encased in the ancient armor, stretched his arms and rolled his shoulders. "Huh?" he said. "This is actually pretty comfortable. A little warm, though. You might want to check the climate settings." I finally managed to clear my throat. "Excuse me, can I ask your name?" He turned, and the armor turned with him, responding to his movement with seamless synchronization. It was as if he'd worn it his whole life. "Oh, Alex Chen, Environmental Systems Specialist, Level 3 certification, though my friends call me Ace. You know, because the armor chose that exact moment to split open again, just briefly, revealing a soft interior glow and, no joke, what looked like a cushioned seat. Alex blinked. Okay, that's new. Pretty slick engineering, though. You do realize what that is, right? I asked, slowly approaching. That armor is older than recorded history. It's from a civilization we know almost nothing about. We've spent 3 years trying to activate it. Alex's eyes widened. Oh, is that why the quantum field was leaking into the ventilation system? That makes sense now. Before I could respond, he stepped forward and the armor adjusted with him, responding to his body language, interpreting every movement in real time. Then a voice spoke. Not Alex's. A deep, resonant, clear voice that echoed throughout the chamber. Greetings, descendants of Project Garden. Genetic compatibility confirmed. Armor unit activated. We all stopped breathing. Alex turned toward us, helmet retracting halfway so we could still see his face. Prude, he said, as if ancient AI introductions were a normal Tuesday thing. But, could you turn the volume down? The acoustics in here are kinda rough. My sincerest apologies, the voice said, now at a more reasonable volume. It has been 49,876 years since my last activation. Sound calibration may require adjustments. I stepped forward, heart pounding. Did you say Project Garden? The armor's surface rippled again, this time in patterns that felt joyful. Indeed. Project Garden was our most ambitious initiative, seeding potential across 1,000 worlds, awaiting the right conditions to bloom. Humanity was one of our most promising cultivars. Alex, meanwhile, was scanning the armor's systems using his tool. You know, your power core is generating negative entropy. That's really unsafe. The armor chuckled. Yes, chuckled. Ah, yes. It said the engineering instinct is strong in your lineage. Tell me, do you still feel compelled to dismantle malfunctioning devices just to see what makes them tick? Alex grinned. Only when they're broken. Speaking of which, your joint servos are a little off-center. Mind if I recalibrate? Before we could stop him, he opened a maintenance panel on the armor's arm. And it let him. Holographic displays lit up across the chamber, streaming data in languages I barely recognized. Alex nodded like he was adjusting a coffee machine. Fascinating? The AI said. You've retained all the traits we selected for. Adaptability, curiosity, disregard for unnecessary hierarchy, and of course, the ability to fix anything. I stared at him, still trying to make sense of it. Are you saying, humans were designed for this, cultivated, the AI corrected, like a carefully tended garden. We chose traits that would survive across generations, practical irreverence, creative thinking, and the refusal to be impressed by flashy lights. Your kind inherited our legacy not because of strength or wisdom, but because you don't hesitate to get your hands dirty. Alex adjusted something and the armor purred. There. Should be running 300% more efficiently now. Also, I fixed that weird rattle in the left shoulder. The AI practically beamed. You are everything we hoped for. I looked around the lab at my team, still frozen in stunned silence. At Nari, who was trying very hard not to laugh out loud. And finally at Alex, already halfway through optimizing ancient systems no one else had even identified yet. It hit me then. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't some fluke. The armor had been waiting for someone like Alex all along. Not a warrior, not a priest, not a genius, just a guy who knew how to fix things. And wasn't afraid to touch the damn machine. So let me get this straight, I said, pacing slowly across the lab, datapad shaking slightly in my hand. You're telling me humans weren't just lucky. They were part of a plan? A galactic science experiment? Not an experiment, the armor's AI replied, its voice calm and strangely cheerful, like an old professor finally delivering the punchline to a decades-long lecture. A project. The most ambitious one we ever undertook. I stopped in my tracks and turned toward Alex, who at that moment was elbow-deep in the armor's interface panel, making small calibration adjustments, like he was tuning up a lawnmower. You hearing this? I asked. Alex looked up. Yeah. Something about a garden? Oh, by the way, your facility's power regulators are 10% out of sync. That's probably what caused the field distortion last week. I blinked. You're fixing the facility right now? Figured I might as well, he said with a shrug. I'm already logged in. The AI's voice resonated again. You see? This is exactly what we meant. Problem solving, efficiency, initiative. Humans are the only species we found who can look at a 50,000-year-old relic and say, yeah, I can probably fix that. Nari, standing next to me, let out a low whistle. So, humanity was chosen. Engineered? For this armor? Engineered? No, no, the AI said. That would imply direct manipulation. We didn't tinker with your genes. We cultivated, nurtured. Like gardeners. Hence, Project Garden, I muttered. Exactly, the AI responded, almost delighted. We spread seeds of potential across thousands of worlds. But Earth was special. Your ancestors showed promise early on. Curiosity, resilience, adaptability. But most importantly, the armor's surface rippled with what I swear looked like pride. A complete disregard for ceremony and an overwhelming compulsion to take things apart and see what makes them tick. You're saying, I started slowly, that out of all the species in the galaxy, humanity was picked because we're a bunch of compulsive tinkerers. Not just that, the AI corrected. You're also absurdly good at improvising, and you're irreverent, which, in our experience, tends to go hand in hand with true innovation. Everyone else we tested treated our technology like a religious artifact. You humans treat it like a piece of hardware that just needs proper alignment, and maybe a bit of WD-40. Alex glanced up. We still use that. Of course you do, the AI said, warmly. Brilliant invention. I felt my knees give a little and leaned against the console. 3 years of intense research, thousands of tests, countless failures, and the key wasn't some mystical lineage or long-lost prophecy. It was that humans didn't take themselves or the technology too seriously. Nari gave me a look. I mean, it kind of makes sense. All those rejection responses, the infomercial jingles, the elevator music, the tap dancing, that wasn't just the armor messing with us. That was the AI filtering out anyone who couldn't take a joke. Exactly, the AI said. The rejection mechanisms were behavioral filters. Anyone too reverent, too rigid, too focused on their own importance. Rejected. What we were looking for was someone who could laugh at the absurdity and still get the job done. Alex, still tinkering, muttered, well, some of those suits were pretty funny. The Hawaiian shirt one. Classic. You liked that? The AI asked, genuinely pleased. We modeled that one on late 20th century Earth leisure wear. It scored very highly in our internal humor subroutines. So, I said, rubbing my forehead, all of this, all the tests, the rituals, the grand speeches meant nothing? The AI hesitated for just a moment. They were highly entertaining. Of course they were, I sighed. Also informative, the AI added. We compiled quite the data set on intergalactic arrogance. Fascinating stuff. Alex stood up from the interface, brushing his hands off. You're really saying humans were grown like carrots? Space carrots with toolkits? Not grown? Encouraged. The AI's voice softened. We didn't know for sure that you'd reach this point. You could have gone 1,000 directions. But when one of your early ancestors looked at a malfunctioning monitoring beacon and said, have you tried turning it off and on again? We had hope, Nari burst out laughing. That actually explains so much. I turned back to the AI, why all the Earth references, why the Terran jokes and languages and symbols. Most other species didn't get them. Pattern recognition, the AI said. We needed someone who wouldn't just understand the technology, but also the humor. Most species failed because they took every message literally. Only humans picked up on the irony, the sarcasm, the subtext. That's when we knew. Knew what? I asked. That the seed had sprouted, the AI replied simply. That the time had come. Alex looked thoughtful. So we're your legacy. You are our continuation, the AI said. We weren't gods. We weren't perfect. We were engineers, and we knew that eventually we'd fade. So we left behind tools, machines, ideas, and one last hope that someone would come along, not to worship our tech, but to improve it. There was a long silence, and then Neri said what we were all thinking. This means humanity was never meant to bow before the stars. We were meant to fix them. The AI hummed in agreement. Exactly. You weren't chosen to preserve our legacy. You were built to upgrade it, Alex grinned. Well, mission accepted, I guess. The lab was quiet for a moment as we all processed the truth. Not a prophecy, not divine selection, just a really, really long-term maintenance plan. And humanity. We were the tool belt. If you've ever worked in a secure facility, you know the drill. Security alerts come in, protocols engage, and everyone panics while pretending they're not panicking. But that day went down in the official records as the MANT incident. That's an acronym, now Maintenance Activated Inviolable Nanotech. Not my idea, by the way. Alex thought it was hilarious. It all started about 5 minutes after Alex fully bonded with the armor. We were still trying to process what we'd just witnessed, an environmental systems tech from level 3 stepping into an ancient, self-aware battlesuit like it was his weekend coveralls when the security alarms blared. Multiple unauthorized vessels approaching. Hull breaches detected on levels 2, 4, and 7. Armed intruders confirmed. I looked up from the flood of data pouring off my console. Seriously? Now? Nari was already pulling up facility schematics. They're targeting the research wing, because of course they were. After 3 years of failure, humiliation, and quantum-induced migraines, we finally unlocked the most important artifact in galactic history, and someone decides it's a good time to rob us. The lab doors slammed open. A dozen Proxman mercenaries stormed in, armed to the teeth with plasma rifles, shock gauntlets, and very bad intentions. Their leader stepped forward, shouting, "Nobody move! We're here for the armor." I was about to say something scientific and possibly heroic, something like, "You'll never take it," but Alex beat me to it. "Oh, hold up," he said, raising one armored hand. "Are those Markive plasma rifles?" The mercenaries blinked, confused. Alex stepped closer, casually inspecting one of their weapons like he was doing a product review. "These things are crazy inefficient. You're losing at least 40% energy output. See this coupling? Totally worn out. Also, your power cells are mismatched." "Who's been maintaining these?" The lead mercenary looked down at his weapon, then back at Alex. "We're here to steal the armor." Yeah, Alex said, waving him off. "In a minute. But seriously, this is a disaster waiting to happen. If you overcharge this unit just once, the whole thing could detonate in your hands." And then he disassembled it, right there, in the middle of the standoff. Alex took the mercenary's plasma rifle apart with such ease and confidence. It was like watching someone peel an orange. The rest of the squad didn't even react. They were too stunned to interrupt the lesson. "See, if you just replace this connector and recalibrate the containment field here." He held out the parts like a teacher in shop class. "Inner energy curve and no risk of spontaneous combustion." Behind me, Nari whispered, Is he actually lecturing them?" "Apparently," I said, too stunned to intervene. The AI chimed in, clearly enjoying itself. Observation. Human response pattern consistent with documented behavior. Tendency to prioritize mechanical inefficiency over immediate danger. 100. More mercenaries poured into the room. And instead of firing, they hesitated. Some of them looked interested. One even started taking notes. "Now, if you really want performance," Alex continued, completely unfazed, "you'll want to use an internal feedback loop to stabilize power draw. Oh, and get your focusing lenses cleaned. I can't tell you how many near misses I've seen from dirty optics," the mercenary leader finally snapped. "We do not need your weapon servicing tips. We are here to..." He didn't finish. Because Alex, mid-sentence, activated something in the armor. A soft pulse radiated outward, and suddenly, every single mercenary was floating, gently, toward the ceiling. Gravity manipulation field engaged, the AI reported cheerfully. "Oh, nice," Alex said, as if he hadn't just neutralized an entire armed squad without lifting a finger. "That'll keep them out of the way for a bit." Now, about those power couplings. The security team burst into the room a few seconds later, weapons raised only to find floating mercenaries, scattered weapon parts, and Alex calmly walking through mid-air like he owned the place. "Stand down," I told them. Apparently, it's handled by a man in work boots who is still explaining the correct maintenance schedule for plasma rifles. I don't know what was more surreal, the fact that the intruders were totally disarmed or that several of them seemed genuinely grateful for the advice. "I think we're failing our safety inspection," one floating mercenary muttered. His teammate nodded. "I didn't even know you were supposed to clean the plasma conduits." By the time the intruders were detained, every weapon in the room had been neatly disassembled, cataloged, and tagged with handwritten repair notes. I'm not even sure where Alex got the tags. Security escorted the mercenaries out like disappointed schoolkids, while Alex clapped one of them on the shoulder. "Hey, you've got potential. Ever thought about enrolling in a technical certification program?" The AI chimed in again, sounding like a proud parent. "In all our simulations, we never predicted this approach to conflict resolution." "You mean the gravity field?" I asked. "No," the AI said. "The technical lecture, as a combat technique." I stared at the data flooding my screen. No injuries, no structural damage. full facility integrity, enemy completely neutralized. By safety protocols. Nari laughed. Weaponized maintenance advice. We need to write a paper on this. And we did, eventually. But in that moment, I was still catching up to the fact that our greatest military defense wasn't a weapon, a strategy, or a reinforced containment field. It was Alex, and his very, very strong opinions about proper equipment care. Later that day, I found him in the main hallway, calibrating the armor's internal systems like he was running a weekly diagnostic. Holographic schematics floated around him, energy flows, system maps, annotated diagrams. I approached cautiously. "You okay after all that?" "Yeah, fine," he said, tightening something in the left shoulder joint. "Though, whoever installed your main power relays needs to be fired. Total mess." I blinked. "You're seriously still thinking about the facility infrastructure?" Alex looked at me like I'd asked if water was wet. "Of course I am. Just because I'm wearing an ancient supersuit doesn't mean I stopped doing my job. You disarmed an entire mercenary squad with maintenance tips." "Exactly," he said, as if that explained everything. "Sometimes people just need a little guidance." And floating, I shook my head in disbelief. 3 years of trying to unlock the armor's secrets. We tried psychic bonds, ceremonial chants, multi-species symbiosis experiments. And in the end? It took a guy who cared more about air filters than mysticism. Maybe that was the point. Maybe, just maybe, the armor hadn't been looking for a warrior. It was looking for someone who understood the importance of routine maintenance. Let me know when you're ready for Key Idea 6, and I'll write the final 1,390-word section. Absolutely. Here's the final 1,390-word rewritten version of Key Idea 6, wrapping the story up with heart, humor, and a meaningful takeaway that ties it all together. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries come from just fixing what's broken. It's been 3 days since the event we now officially refer to as the MANT incident. We've restructured the entire facility, updated our research protocols, revised our security systems, and perhaps most notably started holding weekly maintenance training sessions. Attendance is mandatory, even for the mercenaries. Yes, those mercenaries. After floating gently in 0G while Alex gave them a full critique of their weapon upkeep, most of them ended up enrolling in technical certification programs. One even asked if we were hiring. It's hard to explain what the lab feels like now. The chaos is still there. Labs always have a bit of that, but now it's functional chaos, controlled, productive. Even the coffee machines are working again, which might be the single most miraculous development of this entire journey. At the center of it all, of course, is Alex. Still wearing the ancient armor, still moving around the facility like he's doing his regular rounds, except now those rounds involve adjusting quantum stabilizers, optimizing gravitational buffers, and casually consulting with a 50,000-year-old AI who calls him our greatest success. Every now and then, Alex pauses whatever he's doing to deliver impromptu lectures on safety standards and proper tool storage. The security team takes notes. Nari made a bingo card, and me, I'm writing my final report. Not because the project's over, it's very much just beginning, but because I need to put this into words before the scientific community hears about it through rumors and exaggerated headlines. Though, to be honest, the headlines have been fantastic. My personal favorite is Ancient Superweapon brought online by guy who just wanted to fix the thermostat. Here's the truth. After all the testing, theorizing, calibrating, and near-death experiences, we've discovered something both ridiculous and profound. The armor now confirmed as a Mark VI custodian battle armor built by a precursor civilization we're now calling the Gardeners was never looking for greatness. It wasn't waiting for power, purity, or some cosmic destiny. It was waiting for someone to look at it and say, this could use a tune-up. Alex didn't try to activate it. He didn't beg, pray, or attempt to prove himself worthy. He noticed an energy drain, tried to fix it, and the armor, after millennia of dramatic rejections, said yes. Why? Because Alex treated it like what it was, a machine that wasn't working properly. Not a relic, not a weapon of divine judgment, just something that needed someone who gave a damn enough to get their hands dirty. The AI inside the armor later told us that humanity was cultivated, not chosen. The Gardeners spread genetic potential across the stars, then waited to see who would emerge, not as rulers or warriors, but as technicians, as problem solvers. As people who see malfunctioning machinery and say, let me take a look. I've spent my entire career chasing ancient mysteries. I've written papers, given lectures, and led the most advanced research division in this quadrant. And yet, everything we were chasing, everything we believed the armor stood for was wrong. The signs were there the whole time. Every rejection was a joke. Every failed test was a gentle nudge saying, "You're overthinking it." The elevator music, the cat videos, the Hawaiian shirts, they weren't glitches, they were tests of personality. A cosmic sense of humor finely tuned to identify the one trait that really mattered: practical irreverence. The ability to look at the universe's biggest questions and still remember to check the power supply. So many civilizations treated the armor like a holy artifact. They approached it with ceremony, fear, reverence. They were so busy respecting it that they never once tried to open the maintenance panel. But Alex walked in and said, "Your quantum field harmonics are way off." That was the moment. That's when the armor knew. And honestly, I think that's when I knew too. It's funny, isn't it? We spend so much time idolizing complexity, as if the answers to the universe must be grand and poetic. But sometimes the greatest truths aren't hidden in mysticism. They're sitting right there under a loose panel, waiting for someone with a wrench and a decent work ethic. There's something profoundly human about that, and maybe that's the lesson. Because when I look at Alex still covered in ancient armor, lecturing a group of scientists and former mercenaries about proper fire extinguisher placement, I don't see a chosen one. I see a guy who genuinely cares about systems working, about people being safe, about fixing what's broken. And in the end, maybe that's what the gardeners wanted all along. Not leaders, not prophets, but caretakers. Personal note to future researchers: don't overlook the person walking down the hall with a toolbox. Don't underestimate the value of someone who quietly keeps things running while everyone else is chasing the spotlight. And above all, label your cables. Seriously, the armor has been grumbling about that all week. It's a strange thing, watching an entire worldview shift. We used to think the greatest discoveries came from breaking boundaries, reaching further than anyone had before. But sometimes the breakthrough doesn't come from pushing the frontier. Sometimes it comes from turning around, grabbing a screwdriver and asking, "Has anyone bothered to fix this?" The world doesn't always need a hero. Sometimes, what it really needs is a maintenance worker in the right place at the right time, someone who knows how to check the filters, tighten the bolts, and laugh when the ancient AI starts quoting sitcoms from the 1980s. Because here's the wild part. The future of galactic technology isn't being led by generals or philosophers or genetic elites. It's being led by a guy who once got written up for over-organizing the breakroom tool cabinet, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Galactic conferences. But it was the guy who came to check the air filters who solved the greatest archaeological riddle of our time. That's not just humbling. That's inspiring. We've begun translating more of the gardener tech thanks to Alex, who now has a direct interface with most of it. What we found so far supports what we already suspected. The gardeners weren't gods or tyrants. They weren't warriors or mystics. They were engineers, fixers, builders. They believed the future didn't belong to those who ruled or dominated it, belonged to those who maintained, who understood the importance of small things done well. The gardeners didn't leave behind legacies carved in stone. They left manuals. And more importantly, they waited for someone who would actually read them. So what's the legacy of this whole experience? It's not that we unlocked the armor. It's that we learned how to approach problems differently. We stopped trying to impress the universe. We started listening to it. Not with reverence, but with curiosity, and maybe a little WAD-40. And that's the lesson I hope we carry forward, not just into our research, but into our lives. Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs don't come from the chosen few or the legendary elite. They come from the person who notices the hum, checks the output, and says, "Hey, something's off. Let me take a look." And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the kind of person the future needs. So here's to the maintainers, the tinkerers, the people who keep the lights on and the systems running. Here's to the ones who don't treat broken things like burdens but puzzles. Here's to Alex Chen, who changed the galaxy by doing the one thing no one else thought to do: treat the armor like a job. And more importantly, do it well.